Hi everyone, welcome to ELA with Miss Wooten. So as you can see, I'm in my classroom and I'll be wearing my mask because I just had students leave my room and we're just trying to be safe. So you can see here that we're going to be talking about reliable sources today. Now, I do have this activity set in a student-paced Peardeck for you as well. So if you're interested in joining that, then the code is right here. So you'll go to joinpd.com and type in JSXOQR, and that will take you right here. And you'll be able to control the slides at your own pace. Okay. So the first slide that you're going to come across here is, in your opinion, what does a source need to be or for what it to have in order for it to be good for research? So this is something that, especially around the 8th grade, you should be able to glance at certain articles and websites and kind of have a gut feeling based off of your prior knowledge of what is a good source and what does it look like, even on the surface level. What does it have or what does it not have? That immediately makes you think, okay, this is worth looking into further. Now, here's something where I would suggest taking notes. So the difference between primary and secondary sources, and I've got some examples for you here as well. So with the primary sources, which you'll see on the left, these are going to be your best sources to use for any kind of research, whether you're in middle, high school, or in college. Primary is going to be your number one if you can get it. So these are sources that are created during the time of the event. They are real time capsules of whatever was happening at that moment. And it's typically by somebody who witnessed it or someone who was involved in it. So this involves letters, speeches, photographs, any type of pictures, even art. Journals, diaries, artifacts like clothing that may have been recovered from the scene of whatever it was or from the time period, interviews with someone who was a witness to whatever it was, or publications from that time. So any kind of newspaper clippings, anything like that. It's a primary source. Now, your secondary sources, this isn't to say that they're bad or lesser than necessarily, but these use primary sources already to gather their information. So they're going to be a little less hefty than your primary source whenever you're looking at a research project or a research paper. So secondary sources tell us information about the event from the past. So you'll find this in textbooks, magazines, different encyclopedias like book form, and things like Encyclopedia Britannica or even Wikipedia, websites, forums, documentaries. And documentaries is a good one in the sense that documentaries themselves are a secondary source, but the interviews that they may have inside it that take place in the documentary, those are primary sources because the person that they're interviewing is an expert witness that was there for whatever event it is. The example I usually use for that for my students is when they look at the serial killer documentaries on Netflix. A lot of times they interview the detectives and the police and the families that were involved in this. And even though the cases were about 20 plus years ago, those are still primary sources, the interviews themselves, even though that the documentary is the secondary source. Now here's just a chance for you to either use your drawing tools or your text tools to explain the difference between primary and secondary sources. If this is more something, if you're a visual person, then you can tell me the difference in drawing of like, what does a primary source, what's an example of one, what does it look like? What does maybe a secondary source look like? What does that kind of example look like to you? And here on this slide, let me get myself out of the way. So what you're going to do is you're going to use your drawing tools down at the bottom to be able to draw lines to match the image to the answer. So you have on the left side a unit in biology textbook on the human heart. You have Benjamin Franklin's autobiography, an article in a history magazine on the Civil War. And on the right side, you have a journal entry from an attack on Fort Sumter. You have an iCivics website on amendment rights, and you have an interview with Elie Wiesel on his experience in Auschwitz. So you would take your drawing tools and draw lines to primary or secondary to kind of help you practice with identifying which of these sources is primary and which one is a secondary source. So Now that you've started gathering your sources, you need to start asking these questions whenever you're looking at sources that you want to use for whatever research you're doing. You need to make sure that the information is relevant to your topic, whatever your topic happens to be. For right now, my 8th graders, they are focused on challenges that teens face in the world. So that is their topic, and their subject can differ between each one of them. Some of them may be doing mental health, others may be doing cell phone addiction, other like bigger, heavier topics as well. So you need to make sure that your source isn't just pandering to the surface level of your topic, but actually has to do with it and it's very relevant. You need to make sure that your information in your source is not biased toward one side or the other. The best, most reliable sources will be neutral. And if they are not completely neutral, then they will still address the other side of the argument, whatever it happens to be. So they will still address it and won't just omit information. And then you need to make sure that the source is reliable with information that can be documented to other reliable sources. Now, what I tell my students is the rule of 3. 1 is not enough, 2 is a coincidence, 3 is a trend. So if you can find the same information on 3 other credible, non-biased sources, then it's probably good to use. So here's where you would be able to you should have a blue dot floating around up in your upper right corner here if you're in the Peardeck, to drag your dot, whether to indicate whether or not you believe the source is reliable or not. So we have something here from NBC News about the oyster vending machines installed at French seaside resorts and whether or not you believe this is reliable or not reliable of a source to use. Here's another one of doctors warning Marshawn Lynch that the next time he goes into beast mode, it could kill him, whether or not you believe this is reliable or not. Here we have one from the Babylon Bee, playing Christmas music before Thanksgiving, now a federal crime. Reliable or not reliable? Here we have a screenshot from CNN about breaking news, 6 deaths, 18 cases of coronavirus in Washington state, at least 48 schools in the state closed for cleaning, whether or not this looks reliable or not. We have one here that's another news type screenshot. Breaking news, teen quits school to sleep, whether or not you believe this is reliable or not reliable. We have one here, a law and crime website. First look at the Boulder mass shooting suspect is behind bars. Does this article look reliable or not? And now finally, we have reached the end here. So as you are gathering your resources and all of your different types of sources, whether they are on paper, online, whether they're an interview or an audio clip, you need to keep it real for each one. So this is a way to help you remember. So real stands for reliability. Is this trustworthy? Evidence. Can it be checked and can it be validated from multiple places to make sure that it's true? For the argument, is it supported with facts on both sides? Are both sides of the argument, whatever it is, addressed? And then last one down here, language. Look for bias. See if the author plays favorites with either side of the argument. Does it favor any particular side of this argument that you can tell? And you'll be able to figure that out looking at their language and what type of language they use. And here's just a little check-in here. It's the same thing that my students would do, something very similar. Say, how well did you like this lesson? Was it short, sweet, to the point? Did it help you? Was it not very helpful? Did it need something? Let me know in the comments below, as well as doing this quick little check-in at the very end of the Peardeck slides. I'd appreciate it. Well, that's about all that I have, and I hope that this helps you out with you and gathering your sources for whatever research that you happen to be doing. I know you're going to do great. Thanks for watching.